said, Kalamasi, that means greetings in Munster language. Nidishinze, that is, my name is Little Son of Ramapough, which is deer. I'm in deer clan, Ramapough. We have 3 clans: turtle, wolf, and deer. And they're located in different regions of New Jersey and New York. Ringwood, New Jersey, Hillsborough, New York, and Mall is the clan. I'm also the tribal representative for the Wayweyanda territory, and that's basically Orange County and then this area. See, whenever natives move out of their local home, like Ramapough Mountains, let's say they move 25 or 30 miles out of their area, that group of natives have to take the most common name of the native thing in that area. So my common name where I'm at now is Wayweyanda. So over the years, we've had over at least 3,000 or 4,000 people move out of the Ramapoughs, and they're all living all through Orange County and Sullivan County and Ulster County and parts of New Jersey. So Wayweyanda in Lenape means twisting or meandering stream. But I'd like to just sing a thank you song for letting me come here today. We'll start off with that, and then we can get back into talking. The words to this song was given to me. Well, the song was given to me, but then we made the words up to it. It's Lenape, keep singing, keep dancing, and we love you. So I guess to start at the beginning of the history of the Ramapough. Well, the Lenape Nation, well, it breaks it down: tribe, nation, and your race. So I'm also part Tuscarora also. I'll tell you a little bit about that, how we got into that. So the race is Algonquin, Just like if you were a European, if you're French or you're German, that would be a tribe, but you're all Europeans. So that'd be like your compass of your race. The Algonquin race is the biggest race around in North America. It takes in all of the Wampanoag out across the Hudson River, all those tribes out in Massachusetts, all the tribes in Maine, all the tribes in the Great Lakes, a lot of tribes down in even the Cheyenne are actually Algonquin. They live very close to the Lakota, which is another race of Lakota. So Algonquin tribes in this area, and then they have the Algonquin race. They have the tribes. And I spoke to Lady Kathy earlier downstairs about the Shantico. A lot of people don't know that the tribe of Lenape is right on the border of Connecticut and New York, and they're like not that far from here, right? Where they grew. How far is Shantico from there? Not that far.
Maybe about 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. So Ramapough Lenape. Now the Lenape Ramapough Lenape had three. The history of them had three basic, big clans. I use the word clans, but three major Lenape tribes in the area. And some of them are still there. The Unami, they speak a dialect of Lenape. We speak dialect of Muncie, and we have language classes every month. So we're trying to renew our culture, because a lot of our culture is, just got scattered away. So we have people coming down from Canada, relatives from Canada, and we have language classes like that. So you have the Unami in like the Long Island area, and they're still there. You have the Tinicok, the Ungachuk, and the Shinnecock. They're the turtle. Unami means turtle. Then you have the Unsuleto, which is the turkey in southern New Jersey, like down by Great Adventure or like Fort Dixon, that area. That's where they were. And then you have the wolf, which is the Minces, where they got the name Minnesink from. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Minnesink, New York, or Green, what's that, Greenville. Yeah. So that was like the wolf clan of the Lenapes. But now, that was historically, that's like pre-revolutionary time. So that was the history of them. So where did they go? Where did they go? I don't know. Where did they go? They're not there anymore. But they went to, most of them went to Canada. A lot of them got smallpox. That's what really got most of them, was the smallpox. And then the little battles and the little, around this area had the Sopus. That's another Lenape tribe. They had the war, the Beaver Wars, when they were fighting. You can take notes on all this stuff if you want to look it up. What hurt the Sopus in this area was the Beaver Wars. People were trapping out the beavers and sending them back into Europe to get tanned, and it was a big thing to have. And then like that. So once the beavers started getting depleted, then the people, the Dutch, and they had to go find other resources because the beavers. So they go a little further upstate, a little more. And once they get up towards Albany, they're looking for beavers, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, all these Lenape down here, the Sopus and all the Wappingers and these little tribes in like Orange County, like the Werowampans and all these little tribes like that. And they said, well, these Lenapes used to help us with these beavers, but now we're up here, Albany looking for beavers with just other natives up here, and they're not like you guys down here. So the Haudenosaunee people, they got the Kaneohe people, the Mohawks, and Oneida. So that caused a lot of conflict between who was going to control the trade of the beavers. So that also helped to stir up the troubles down here, because now the French and the Dutch who were trying to get these beaver hides were saying, well, these natives up here, they're not as friendly as you guys down here. So can you help us to fight them? And that's what happened. So the Haudenosaunee people, the Iroquois people, if you think about it, Algonquin was the major race around this area. Like I said, so the Iroquois people, they were surrounded by Algonquins. They were fighting the Ojibwa, they were fighting the Chippewa and the Great Lakes across what we call the Manicontuck, which we call the Hudson River, the river that runs both ways, Manicontuck. All those tribes across there, Iroquois had a problem with them. They didn't really have that much problem with us off and on down here with the Lenape. Actually, we were called as the seventh tribe of Iroquois. The Ramapough down here did at one time join the Iroquois. But after the Revolutionary War was over, that kind of messed up their whole thing for all the tribes. But the Iroquois Confederacy, which I wear, was a gift to me from Onondaga chief who passed away years ago. Talk about the Great Peace. The Great Peace. When you see Iroquois upstate and you talk to them on the reservation, they greet you with Sago. They say Sago, and when you answer them back, they'll say Sago. Like they're saying they're greeting you, and you answer them, Sago's gonna go. And you're telling them, actually, I believe I know about the Great Peace, the peace that the peacemaker came and united the Haudenosaunee people. Because they were at a point, all the Iroquois Confederacy, the 5 nations originally, they were all killing each other. They got to the point where they were totally decimated the Huron and the Erie and the Tobacco tribes, who were also Iroquois race of people. So the Iroquois race of people in New York State, they were small compared to all these Algonquin tribes that surround them, north, south, east, west. So eventually they came together. They formed the 5 nations. We call it Whisk, Ongwe, yes, 5 nations. So now we get back to the Ramapough. 1722, take notes, you want to take this stuff, take notes. Tuscaroran Wars. We call them the 6 Nation now, right? But it was originally 5. Kaniehaka people, their enemies called Mohawk. You ever think about that? They call themselves Kaniehaka people. The people that work with Flint, the Flint people. How do they get the name Mohawk if there's no letter M, P's, M's, or B's in the whole Iroquois language? How do they get the word Mohawk? Well, I'll tell you. Get back to the Beaver Wars, when the French and the Dutch met a lot of Iroquois Mohawk people upstate, and they came back and asked the Lenapes, well, hey, these people up here, they're like, kind of like not friendly. They want to shoot arrows at us. They want to, and they said, well, who are they? They're not Lenapes. Who are you? So then the tribes down here who had problems with a lot of Mohawks and Iroquois, they told them, oh, they're Mohawk. And now in the Algonquin language, Mohawk meant basically snake handlers or people eaters. So the natives down here that didn't get along with Iroquois, and actually became, once all Iroquois were at one time called Mohawk. So it didn't matter if they were Cayuga or Seneca or Oneida. When the people, the traders asked them who they were, they said, oh, they're all Mohawk. They're all cannibals. That's how they got the word. So, but now, they're known as Mohawk. Most people refer to them as Mohawk. But they refer to themselves as Kaniehaka, Flint people. Just like the Lenapes. They call us Delaware. Wait a minute, that's not an Indian word. That's not a native word, Delaware. Well, how did they get the name Delaware? If we call ourselves the Lenape, the people, the real people. Well, this guy named Lord Delaware from England,
Of course.
he was sanctioning and the money to have the voyages come over. So they told him, like, okay, we're coming on shore, either to come to the shore, you go out to New York, or you come to the shore, the ships are coming, and every time they go off the shore, the marking off, the charting off land, and there's like surveying, and they say, well, we claim this mountain over here, we claim this in the name of Lord Delaware. He's the one that gave us the money to come here, and we're doing these voyages for him. Over here, that river over there, the whole river, we're claiming in the name of Lord Delaware. These 2-legged creatures that they didn't consider human beings. They look like human beings. They got a head, they got 2 arms, they got 2 legs. but they're not civilized, but whatever they are, we claim them, things that look like people, we claim these people in the name of Lord Delaware. So that's how they got the name Delaware. But we call ourselves the Lenape or wherever it is. So 1722, around that area. Now, I don't know if you knew this, the first people that were legally, when we became the United States of America, before the Continental Congress and before, when we were established as the United States of America on paper, Declaration of Independence, all settled and everything, the first people, group of people that were legally sold as the United States were not African American. You can look this all up. I'm telling you, don't believe anything I say. The first people that were sold into slavery in this country when we became the United States of America were not African Americans, they were Native American people. Look that up. Because in 1722, Tuscarora in North Carolina area, and that area of Tennessee border, the Cherokee, what they call it, another name, the Scotty people, what they call themselves, they got the common called Cherokee, but they have another name for themselves. Cherokee were paid big bucks money to catch my ancestors, Tuscaroras, and sell them into slavery. 1722, 23, that area. So the Cherokees had big plantations, they owned slaves, and they were getting paid big money to get the land where the Tuscaroras were. Now these are two Iroquois race of people. Two Iroquois race of people, so just because they were the same race of people, they didn't get along. Cherokees are Iroquois race of people, and Tuscarora were Iroquois race of people. But they were decimated. They were catching these Tuscaroras and they were grabbing them and selling them into slavery. So, I don't know if you're familiar with if you're familiar with the oratory story of how the Lenape and the Iroquois came from the Midwest to the east. Well, it's called a Walla. It's a verbal story because we didn't have the written language. Cherokee had written language, but they had their own newspapers. The Cherokees had their own schools. The Cherokees said, wait a minute, these Europeans, these white people, they're coming here, they're taking over our country. Basically, the Cherokees said, don't beat them, join them. We'll have slaves. They even had their own written language, Cherokees. You're aware of that. It was called, they even had their own newspaper. Sequoyah was their chief, who actually was the only first Native American person to ever develop the written alphabet and language and everything. So the Cherokees owned plantations, they owned slaves, and they were catching them. So the Tuscarora, according to the story, long before like pre-Columbus, the Lenape and the Cherokee and the Lenape and Iroquois were migrating from west to east because the Iroquois had problems with the Teton Lakota. And actually, the Iroquois war dance song is called Wasaze, and the Iroquois Wasaze refers to Lakota people. So the Iroquois and the Lenape were migrating from Midwest. As they came across the Ohio Valley, they met a group of big group of natives called the Allegheny. That's where you get the Allegheny Mountains from. Allegheny, how you want to pronounce it? Allegheny. And they were through the Ohio Valley. And they saw these people migrating. Most of these tribes were coming across. And they said, wait a minute, you're just going to have a war? Well, why are you just coming through our territory? And they told them, so no, we're just migrating and we're trying to find a place where the sun comes up. That's what they told them, because they were traveling to the east where the sun comes up. So they said, okay, you can come through, but don't stop and don't have any, we don't want to have a war with you, we don't have a battle. You'll be allowed to pass through our country, through Ohio Valley. So about halfway through the migration, these Allegheny said, wait a minute, there's too many of them coming. There's more than we thought there was. There's a bunch of. So they had a battle. We looked this up, you could find it. So they had a battle with them, and the Iroquois and the Lenapes, they destroyed Allegheny and they basically wiped them off the map. So they migrated, and then the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee people, Longhouse people, they came to by, like I say, close to Delaware River right there. So they took all the land that was north, and then Lenape took the lands that was south, went down south. So the Cherokee and the Tuscarora migrated with the rest of the Iroquois group, but they decided to go south. This is pre-Columbia. This is like, I don't know, 1311 something, whatever. So then, and when Tuscarora wars were happening, they said, okay, the Iroquois said, okay, send messengers down. They said, okay, you came with us, we're going to accept you back up. It took over 100 years for the Tuscaroras to migrate up from North Carolina to escape the slavery that was going down there. And eventually they became the Sixth Nation of the year. They call it Yayak, Onwe Yayak, Sixth Nation. So on their migration, as they were migrating up, some of them split through Pennsylvania. A lot of them went through the Appalachian Trail. And guess what's right in the middle of the Appalachian Trail? Ramapough Mountains. So that's why a lot of our people, we have ties with we have mixed with the Tuscaroras. But we refer to be on paper as Lenape, and that's the way our tribe is set up as Ramapough Lenape. But we know for a fact we had other, tribes. I don't know, before we show that little video, but that's what happened. So now bringing up the time period a little bit more recently to the 1900s. We're in Ramapough, it's 25, 30 miles from metropolitan New York City. There's Indians living up in those mountains over there? Yeah, man, don't go up there. Then the rumors started. See, because after the Revolutionary War, we were watchers for Washington. George Washington used the Ramapoughs as messengers and as watchers. We got a place up in Mall, what's called Split Rock. It's our sacred site. And if any of you have ever been down there, we have people come from the Andes, from South America. Spiritual people come and said, this is some type of spiritual thing. It's a big, gigantic boulder with a crack down the middle, and then it's got these structures that come out parallel to each other, about 20 feet out. We've had archaeologist David Johnson, a renowned national archaeologist, come up and find certain stones and things, because a lot of stuff is overgrown. You really can't tell. You have to have a good eye for these things. And David Johnson's been there several times, and other people, and said, yeah, this is definitely an old archaeological type of some of the stones, if you look, they're in the ground, but they're like set up like they match things in the sky, like the Pleiades and certain constellations. And so now we got this as not only as a national historical site, now it's going to be internationally recognized as a sacred site. It's called Split Rock. And it's on the border of New York. It's in Mall, actually, but it's on the border of New York. It's right on the border of New York and New Jersey. It's a big, as you're coming through 17, you look up on the mountains before you get to Suffern, you'll see that's Split Rock. So that's what's going on down there. So getting back to the Ramapough people, 1900s, of course, a lot of them served in the First World War, a lot of them in the Second World War, but basically they stayed up in the Ramapough Mountains. And the only thing people would write rumors about these people and books and stories about, just to make it entertaining. That area was what, you had, what's his name down, Sleepy Hollow, Sleepy, all that area would, so it was interesting to make history, to make stories about entertaining. And you got some crazy mixed blood, crazy Indians, people living up these mountains, and they've been there forever, and don't go up there though, because you won't come back alive.
Jackson White.
The cops don't go up there. They call him Jackson White from supposedly some captain named Jackson had prostitutes. Who would bring 100 people all the way from England to service revolutionary mercenary troops like the Hessian soldiers? And I mean, what woman in her right mind would get on a ship to come across the ocean to service, men? But that's what these rumors started going. Captain Jackson had a bunch of white women come and service these people, and the people in the area got to be known as Jackson Whites. That was the common name they called them. It made no sense to me. But yeah, of course. And because we're the first people on this continent, all Native people on the East Coast were the first ones to be intermarried. I mean, ever since, as opposed to people out in Arizona or out west, they're more full blood, but we don't look at that anymore. We still live in our geographical area. We have burial grounds that date back to carbon date back to before 1400. We have certain sites up there, so we know These are my ancestors. I mean, I can tell you where my great-great-great-grandfather is buried at. How many people that migrated to this country right now can tell them where their great-great-grandfather is buried, or great-great-grandmother? I know. I know from... So we're there. We've still been there. So what happened was, how did we come out of the mountains? Well, we were isolated. We stayed away. After the Revolutionary War, the people knew that we were up there in the Ramapough Mountains. They said, well, let them stay up there. There's nothing up in those mountains we want. The Ramapough Mountains actually start in Bear Mountain, and they go all the way down westward into what's called Ramapough, New Jersey. So it's a pretty good. And there was little pockets of town, Doodletown, all these mining towns that had iron mines. So my ancestors, our Ramapoughs, worked in the iron mines. Well, a lot of people don't know that the first cannonballs that were fired in the Revolutionary War, those cannonballs came out of the Ramapough Mountain iron forge mines, Ramapough. The chain link fence that went across the Hudson to keep the British out, they were forged in the Ramapough Mountains, and my ancestors worked in those iron mines. So that was the first time that the Native people had opportunity to work collectively as, with other people. So time goes on, World War I, World War II, and then the Ford plant come down there in Mallwall, and the Ford plant, people started coming out of the mountains and say, what, we can get a job here. We could be mechanics, they worked in the kitchen, they worked in the cafeteria. So a lot of my relatives, most of the people in the Ford plant, my friend Kimlin, her father worked in the Ford plant. He wasn't Ramapough, but he worked there. And so people started coming out of the mountains, and people started saying, wait a minute, are you one of those Jackson Whites that we've heard about? And they were like, they were like, what? They didn't call themselves Jackson White. They found it offensive. They found the word, a lot of people down there found it offensive. I run into people all the time, and I tell them, I'm a Ramapough Lenape. Oh, you mean one of those Jackson Whites, right? See, they don't know that to us, it's offensive. It's like calling somebody the N-word or something or whatever. To us, it's offensive because we took that thing about them saying that our ancestors came from prostitutes. So it's totally crazy. So they don't know. They're ignorant. They don't know that they're not to say the word Jackson White, but they do. So anyhow, that's what happened. Bring it up more contemporarily, and then we're going to show this video. How am I doing on time, right?
You're 12:30, 12:35.
Okay.
You're okay.
And like I said, I'm the Spirit of Mountain Singers is our drum group we have. We do the powwows, and I'm the lead singer for that group. So if you ever get a chance to come to our powwows and check out the drum group, we do really good. But getting back to that, the Ford plant closes down, so people have moved out. So people moved up here, up in Orange County, they're moving up down north. So that's what happened with people that were in the mountains. Because originally, after the Revolutionary War, the people in the valleys, said, let those people stay up in those mountains. They've been there. There's nothing up in those mountains we want. And let those people be by themselves. They didn't care if we went to school or not. But they never went to school. I think the first school in Hillburn was like 1930-something. They had first school in Hillburn, New York. They didn't care about those mountains. Even the census people didn't go up there. So after the Ford plant closed down, people moved out. And we do have land there. We have a tribe. We have a tribal community center that's set up with a chief, 4 clans, and we have 3 what's called bands. I'm actually a territory representative. I represent the people that moved out of the 3 clan areas: Hillburn, Mallwall, and Ringwood, and I represent the way beyond the territory. That's what we call it. And we have a website. We're modern. We have websites: Ramapough Nation, Ramapough.org. Split Rock Sweetwater Prayer Camp, other sites that you can go to. So up at about 10, 15, I'm saying, let's say 5 years. I'll bring it up to 5 years ago. And this will tie into this video. Well, we have 13.9 acres of land in Mallwall, right across from Ramapough College. It's called 95 Halifax Road. So we also have some land, property in Stony Point, New York. And we have our tribal office up on top of the mountain. So we have 13.9 acres of land. It's our ceremonial land. That's it, on paper, by word. It's called our ceremonial land. It's not a place where we can buy and sell. We don't have fairs there. We don't sell stuff there. It's all for prayer. We have people from Buddhist monks have come. It's open for anyone that wants to come and do prayer or ceremony. We've had, Jewish, people, and all types of religion come here. So about 5 years ago, we had the land. We're fixing it up and everything. People want to do ceremonies. So around our land there, they had little mini mansions. They called the Homeowners Association. They also referred to as the Polo Club. So these richy people, little mini mansions, they stay around our property. Our property has no buildings on it, no structures. It's just all open land. And we come there and pray, and we come there and do ceremony, and we've been doing that even way back when, because the Ramapough River runs right through that area. So we were doing more and more ceremonies about 5 years ago. Then they were having this thing with the pipeline, the oil protesters out in Nebraska and South Dakota. So we sent people out there to support the pipe. They were protesting the pipes going through. So some of the Lakota people knew that we always support other Native people. We support our Iroquois brothers upstate when they were having problems with Pataki, with taxes. Ramapough, we belong. Some of us belong to the American Indian Movement, AIM. So we're active. We're activists. We're very active. So some of the people from Lakota gave us some teepees. Now our people lived in wigwams and longhouses. My ancestors never knew what a darn teepee was. But anyhow, they give us these teepees and we put them up on our property because we're going to protest not only the pipeline that they were doing out west, but they were trying to put Millennium Pipeline and 2 other pipelines to go from Albany and Canada, come straight down through New Jersey, right through Ramapough territory, right down through Trenton into Philadelphia. So we're protesting. We have people, not just Ramapough people, we have people from, people who were interested in stopping these pipelines. So we had people coming every day to our prayer camp. We're doing prayers and ceremonies. Well, the town of Mahwah, because of this polo club, the polo club, the homeowner says that we kept on calling the police on us because we were singing, have little campfires going. We were in a circle saying prayers, and they were constantly getting calls, and police would come and say, "What's going on? What are you just doing?" And we're here praying. We're having a ceremony. Oh well, they're complaining about you. You guys, you had a fire going, and they saw smoke, so they called. We're just having a ceremony. Then Mahwah actually wrote on writing. Here's where they messed up at. They actually put in writing that we couldn't assemble and pray. They put that, the town of Mahwah, the village was the town. They put that in writing that we were unlawfully assembling without a permit. And hey, it's not like we were doing it in the middle of Walmart. This was our own property. We had deed for it, 13.9 acres put in our tribe's name. We're praying on. They said that's where they messed up in court. We had to take them to higher court because we took them to the local court. That didn't work because they were all cahoots too. So we had to take them to Trenton. We took the higher court. To make a long story short, we got legal people that specifically deal with civil rights cases, and they won the case because the only instructions we had on our property was a half circle of stones. You might see that, and I think they might show part of it in the video. Did you guys see that? We had a half a circle of stone. That's what we called an altar, where you could go up there and put a stone down, or prayer. Someone passed away, or you wanted to put a prayer, whatever. It was just for a prayer. So one side is for prayer, the other side is for asking God, for asking the Creator for something. So we had a half a circle of stones, and then we had what we call our big house. We had logs with or we call meng shui. They're like spiritual carvings. I guess you would refer to it like out in the West with something similar to totem poles out in like the Salas and similar to that. The spiritual things, we don't worship them. They're just carvings that represent certain things of our culture. Town of Mahwah was fining us $1,200 a day for having carved faces on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 logs and a half a roll of stones. $1,200 a day. Went on. It got to like $8 million. They were charging us. Sitting in court like, wait, $8 million for just half some stones and some carved faces on our own property that they said we needed a permit to carve on a dead log. Crazy, we got crazy. So, we had good lawyers, thank God. And they overturned it in like 3 years ago, they overturned it. They did away with all the fines. We got Mawwall for our back. The town of Mawwall in Lenape means meeting place. Or that's where we used to go seasonally. Our ancestors used to seasonally meet in Mawwall, like have big baked clam bakes. So they took, but we're still dealing with a homeowners club. We're trying to get a settlement with them. But basically what it is, I grew up in Chester, my sister, I grew up in Great Court, Chester, New York. I know. The town was mixture. We had most of our family in one spot of Great Court in Chester, but we got along fine. We got along fine with people in the schools. The town people are my father and my grandfather. They all worked in the slaughterhouse or whatever. We got along. I didn't really meet prejudice until I started going back down into Mawwall. I'm like, this is crazy. These people hate us just for who we are. They hate us. They don't care. They don't want to come up and say hi. And we invited them constantly. We would invite our haters. And the Bible says, love your enemy, love yourself. We would invite these people. Some of them would come, but most of them, they didn't want nothing to do with us. They didn't want to learn about our culture. They didn't want to learn about being involved with our prayer ceremonies. They just, every little thing. They even shot a couple of guys. This one German guy, or whatever, I think it was from Austria somewhere, he was calling us gypsies and calling the cops, saying, those gypsies down there, and he actually shot at somebody. Then, I don't know the way things work, this is a true story, I'm not telling you. The guy got sick after he shot at somebody, and he was calling the cop. He was so miserable, I guess he was so miserable that it started eating him because he hated us so much. And he dies about 2 or 3 weeks later. He passes away, he dies from some massive heart attack or stroke. And then the other neighbor who across the street, her name was, we call her Mary, off the record, we call her Mary the Witch. She was always calling the cops on us. She would walk the dog on our property, let the dog do his business on our property and walk away and throw bags of doo-doo on our property. She finds out that this guy passes away across the street from her, dies. She calls the cops and says, oh, those Ramapough Indians, they put a spell on him and made him die. Yeah, that's what she did. Yeah, they put a spell on him, they made him die here, they put a spell on him, those gypsies. So, we deal with her individually. So that's what's happening. So we're doing fine now. We did away with all the fines. We have our powwows. We have, we're doing good. We're struggling as a tribe, and it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy. We're recognized by the state of New Jersey as a state tribe. New York at the time and wrote a nice big letter. Yeah, we believe anything New Jersey says about these people are Indian, but New York never wrote nothing legislative. We're trying to get that too. So we are a state recognized tribe, a free state tribe in New Jersey. You'll see that in the video. And what the video is about, what I'm talking about, we have Assemblywoman in New Jersey who sanctioned this video for all law enforcement personnel, local, state, federal law enforcement personnel in New Jersey must view this video to show how to respect things that we have in our vehicles when they stop us. And this video was actually, most of it was taken down on the property.
And everyone on that side has to come over on this side.
So enjoy the video. It's not long, it's like 12 minutes. I believe. Come on. I appreciate it.
Many of our perceptions of American Indians have been formulated through Hollywood images, and sadly, through an uninformed educational experience. Little information has been available regarding New Jersey's American Indian communities. Common misconceptions include many stereotypes. We find the vanishing race, the noble savage warrior, the stoic Indian, the bloodthirsty savage, and the drunken Indian.
For females, we find the offensive word squaw. Throughout history, the Indian woman was often physically or sexually assaulted by non-native men. During this exploitation, the Indian word squaw was used to identify the Indian female genitalia. Regrettably, use of the word spread. It is commonly applied to all American Indian women today, for its true meaning has been lost to non-natives. Justly so, it remains the single most offensive word to women in the Native community. We also hear of the Indian princess, though that term was never applicable to North American tribal culture.
Physical stereotypes include misconceptions that all American Indians look like the 1940s images presented in popular Hollywood westerns. Finally, we see the mystical Indian, who lives in harmony with nature and possesses special powers. Today, we are still confronted with negative images of American Indians that are caricatured and used widely as mascots and logos. The non-native population should be aware that American Indians see this as a capitalization and exploitation of American Indian culture.
We live in two worlds, but we all belong to the story of our people. We gather strength from our tribe. Our lands are our book of memories. We are mentally, physically, and spiritually connected to our Aboriginal homelands. Here is where we are known. Even the wind carries our names. We walk upon the land where our ancestors once walked. We are at one. We are home. Our culture is our identity.
Law enforcement needs accurate, contemporary information to enable officers to have positive interactions with New Jersey's American Indian populations. It is important that law enforcement officials understand the social, religious, and political lifestyle differences that exist when interacting with the Native community. This will ultimately facilitate better relationships with New Jersey's American Indians.
Where are New Jersey's American Indians? In the north is the Ramapough Nation, with over 4,000 enrolled members that straddle the New Jersey and New York borders. These tribal members continue to inhabit their ancestral homelands, which include Bergen, Passaic, Essex, and Hudson counties in New Jersey, and Rockland and Orange counties in New York. Their tribal center and administrative offices are located in Mahwah, New Jersey, with a satellite service center in Paterson and 2 additional offices in New York State.
The Powhatan Lenape have their tribal center, museum, and festival grounds located within the Rancocas State Park in Burlington County. The Powhatan tribal members reside in both Burlington and Camden counties.
The Nanticoke Lenai Lenape have over 3,000 enrolled members, of which 80% inhabit Cumberland County, with additional members living in Gloucester County. Their main tribal center and administrative offices are located in Bridgeton, with a rural community service center located in Fairton, Cumberland County.
Both the Ramapough Lenape and the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape have again received the federal designation as American Indian Statistical Areas. The Intertribal Association, located in central New Jersey, represents American Indians who live in New Jersey, but whose backgrounds represent tribes in other states that are federally or state recognized.
And the Sand Hill Band of Lenape Cherokee of Monmouth County continue to reside in their ancestral lands in the Sand Hills of Neptune, with additional family members living in nearby Asbury Park and Tinton Falls.
There is a false perception that the majority of American Indians live on reservations. In fact, many citizens of American Indian ancestry are part of contemporary life and work as professionals in varied careers. Many American Indian families have survived by hiding in plain sight while being racially misidentified by the larger population. There are many American Indian families and whole communities which have survived by remaining discreet about their identity. They blend into the social and racial backdrop of the majority population around them, yet privately maintain their tribal heritage and cultural ties.
Most Americans are unaware that any American Indian identified in public records was not legally considered a human being until an 1879 U.S. District Court ruling in the case of Standing Bear versus Crook, which declared them persons within the meaning of the law. Or they are unaware that American Indians were not considered United States citizens until the 1924 Indian Citizenship Act, or that American Indians did not enjoy the freedom to openly practice any traditional tribal spiritual ceremonies until the passing of the American Indian Religious Freedom Act by the United States Congress in 1978. This history has made American Indians zealous over protecting their customs and exercising their indigenous practices. It has often left them suspicious of the intentions of non-tribal authority figures.
Afternoon, sir. I'm also part of Laney Bristol Police Department. The reason I'm stopping you are going 40 and a 25 back on Laurel Street. May I see your license, insurance, registration, please?
When stopping one of New Jersey's American Indians for a traffic violation, a tribal member may offer a tribal identification card given to them by their tribal authority as additional identification. However, like any citizen, if engaged in a regulated activity, the proper license and/or certifications must be in possession as required by law. Additionally, an officer might then see what he or she may presume to be weapons, which could be perceived as a potential threat, or illegal drugs and drug paraphernalia.
All right, sir. I'm going to have you step out of the vehicle. Just keep your hands in plain view where I can see them. Step to the back of the vehicle, please. What's that odor coming from inside your vehicle?
Sage?
Sage?
Yeah, we use it for ceremonies, for cleansing.
Many American Indians use sage, sweetgrass, cedar, and tobacco. None of these items are illegal. American Indians consider these items to be sacred and may smoke and/or burn them for spiritual and religious purposes. To the average person, the scent of sage and cedar can easily be mistaken for marijuana. In truth, none of these items create a drug-induced effect.
You carrying any drugs on you right now?
No, sir.
What's that around your neck and waist?
These are medicine bags. Nothing illegal. It's just where we keep our prayers, our personal prayers.
Okay, do you mind if I take a look inside?
Prefer if you did, but I can show you if you like.
Okay.
Many American Indians carry medicine bags on their person. It is usually a small leather pouch, turtle shell, or some other natural material which contains various personal and spiritual items. Law enforcement officers should be aware that medicine bags are considered of great personal spiritual significance. Touching a medicine bag can be considered an affront. If it becomes necessary to conduct a search, calmly and politely indicate that you need to check the bag or other objects. Handle them carefully and in a respectful manner to avoid being culturally offensive and sparking an unwanted escalation of tensions. It is not unusual for items such as spears, knives, war clubs, bows, and arrows to be used for cultural educational seminars or for spiritual ceremonies. Most knives or ceremonial weapons carried by American Indians are not prohibited weapons under New Jersey law.
Officer, those are sacred items that you can be gentle with them. I would appreciate it.
By simple physical appearance, how can you identify who is American Indian? The point is, you can't. Despite many preconceived images, American Indians vary greatly in their physical attributes. It is important that law enforcement officers initially accept an American Indian's self-identification.
How are you doing, sir? Officer Zito Mobile Police. We received a noise complaint regarding the loud music in the area.
Okay, so right here, I'll go get my chief.
Okay.
Showing appropriate respect for tribal tradition can go a long way to gaining the cooperation of community members. It is important to note that many tribal ceremonies and social gatherings are closed to the public. To have someone come unescorted into an area restricted for spiritual purposes would be considered highly offensive. If there is no apparent emergency, it is important to respect such customs.
Officer, can I offer you a refreshment while waiting for the chief?
No, thank you. I appreciate it, though.
Okay.
Being offered refreshment by an American Indian is a significant act of hospitality.
We received a noise complaint regarding the loud music in the area.
Yeah, well, we're doing some cultural things. Maybe the locals aren't familiar with some of our customs.
Okay, how long is this event supposed to last?
Maybe about an hour or so.
During some tribal functions, special dress known as regalia may include a decorative knife or such items. These should be viewed as ceremonial in nature and are not necessarily a threat. Officers should view the demeanor of the person as the primary indication of intent.
It is also important to use the title of the individual when possible, or at least sir or ma'am, instead of assuming familiarity by calling them by their first name, which could be interpreted as disrespectful. Among other highly regarded sacred items, traditional spiritual leaders of Indian communities may carry ceremonial pipes, rattles, feathers, and special fans. Cultural spiritual leaders will typically be very protective of sacred objects in their care. It is considered offensive to irreverently handle such items. Quite different from the Hollywood stereotype of the tribal warriors dancing to prepare for battle, celebrations may include traditional dancing, drumming, singing, and special ceremonial activities. However, none of these events should be viewed as hostile or potentially dangerous.
Tribal gatherings are celebrations of culture and spirituality. Sometimes gatherings are private, at other times they are open to the public. Informed law enforcement officials can put the public at ease over such things. American Indians are part of the fabric of our state's continuing history. An awareness of the ongoing presence and unique perspectives held by New Jersey's American Indian communities will aid in promoting positive interactions with law enforcement officers.
Do we have a little time for questions?
Yeah, so that's really up to date on what's happened with the tribe. That's actually probably around 4 or 5 years old, because the lady narrating that, she died of breast cancer about 3 years ago. Her name was Autumn Flynn. She was the one of the directors for the New Jersey, Native American New Jersey Committee on Native I'm trying to think of the name of it.
Commission?
Committee on Native American, whatever, tied in with the state legislature wanted, to have a section for Native American history. The Commission on Native American Functions, whatever. She narrated it. Her name is Alden. Beautiful lady. She used to make these dolls with no eyes. They call them no-face dolls. It was a tradition that they had, the Lenapis had, making these dolls without any eyes or teeth on it. Anybody got any questions about it? So, like I said, there's 3,000 of us registered natives, just like a couple thousand not registered. They're spread out all over North America, somewhere in California, a lot of them in Florida.
You had a question?
I'm sorry.
Al?
I'm sorry, I can't see, so just say, hey, me, or whatever.
Just this week, I finished a book by an author from Woodstock about stone cairns and so forth in the Catskills here. Now, I grew up in Woodstock, and I was up the Overlook hundreds of times, and we used to see, it was interesting to see that you mentioned this today, about the stones and the directions and all the things that they mean. And I know as young people, we used to go up there and see that. We always thought that was just the farmers clearing the land, putting the stones in a pile. But after reading this book, I found out that every one of these things all have some meaning, as you're saying. And I remember walking on the front of Overlook many times and seeing a lot of these different walls and cairns and so forth that this guy talks about in this book. And this book is about this thick with lots of pictures in it. And so it was very interesting to hear you mention that today.
Yeah, because it's important that we have professional people like archaeologists and anthropologists to come and document these sites, because as time goes on, they just get overgrown.
Yeah.
I mean, a perfect example, like you said, seeing something you don't know what it is, or I don't know what it is, but someone with that studies this stuff, you know, geology or something, they say, wait a minute, this is not just here. This here was, they could see it was done like maybe 4, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. Most people wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Ramapough College, I mean, I don't know if they knew about it, but we had some of our, not us, but we had archaeologists that were, you know, just, they knew about, they had historical information on let's say, a certain location. Ramapough College and the Route 202 ran down through here. And then if you go across Route 202, you come into where our property is. Well, right across from Ramapough College, there's a tennis court right there. Pretty big tennis court. They didn't know that the people that built the tennis court, but that was a burial ground, and people came in and said, wait a minute, you know, hey, you Ramapough people, do you know there's a tennis court buried over top one of your ancient burial sites? And we didn't know anything about it. But sure enough, it's still there. We can't go back to college and say, okay, tear up your tennis court, we have our ancestors buried there. But you know, things like that. There's a lot of stuff. You're walking every day on something that could be, you know, they build a park lot over, they build a ball mark over, they build, you know, there's a lot of things out there that people don't realize, you know. I mean, even we get into this weird stuff, and people want to know, they buy a house or they go somewhere, all of a sudden they start hearing weird stuff in their house. They don't know, it might be over an Indian burial ground or something. I mean, some people believe in those type of things, spirits or whatever, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of things out there. We're not totally aware that, hey, there's something here, or whatever. You know, think about this. Like I said, so we brought up with the thing.
Another question for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could give us some background on the history of the settlement of New Paltz, because the official history that I had read was in 1677, about 37,000 acres of land were purchased from the Esopus by the Huguenots. But I also know that, you know, there was a lot of starvation and disease, and they were suffering after wars. So I just was wondering if you could give us any more background.
Yeah,
so we know the
16 what?
1677.
So that was probably around the end of those beaver. They were having problems with the beaver war, and a lot of people were getting smallpox.
Yes.
That was the main thing that got the people. And so a lot of people, the Esopus people went and got absorbed into some of the Iroquois tribes. A lot of them moved up into Canada. And some of them, at that time, they were also having problems. I might be wrong. You can go check the date, but the Wappinger, which were also Lenape. This guy, I think his name was Daniel Nimham. Anybody ever hear of Daniel Nimham? I know every year they have a powwow across on about Carmel, up by Beacon called. He was a Wappinger Indian. And I'm sure somehow he ties up with these Esopus ones too. And at that time, it was just prior to the French and Indian Wars, there was a lot of Indian kill settlers, settler kill Indian, and one they had the Peace War, where because it started a big battle between Lenapes and some native person walked over and picked a piece off. This is what they say. I wasn't there, of course. Some picked a piece off a tree, and the person that had owned the property, I guess the person that owned the property, shot this girl for trespassing, and that started a big old thing going on around here. And like I said, it was just all about money, right? The beavers, the coonskins, you know, all this new stuff that Europeans from Europe, you know, they say, oh, this is pretty cool. They have these, you know, skins and furs and all that stuff. It was pretty, you know. So that's what it basically was. I think they left in. Some of them did get absorbed into the Iroquois, the Esopus, and maybe some of them got absorbed into the Scantico. Okay, what's it, Kathy? Kathy here still?
Yeah, right here. Yes.
Scaticoat, do you know if any of the Scaticoat were absorbed into some Esopus?
I'm not aware of that. I don't know.
Well, I would think maybe that's what they would have done.
So did they Esopus, I mean, one of my goals is to sort of write a land acknowledgement for our worship service that says we acknowledge the original settlers, but I don't just want to say brownie points, we now acknowledge that this was settled. I want to somehow keep us learning and keep us more aware. What do we do to respect current, to learn our history, to respect current Native American tribes, to restore culture?
I know a lot of Native people, through my years of being with them, I've been in the military, because like a lot of even natives that lived on reservations, not every native is getting millions of dollars from gambling casinos and stuff. That's very small percent of it. The majority of Native people in this country, very small percentage of that whole population, is getting any revenues from native gambling. I'm not saying there are some of them, but the majority of them living in poverty. You know, especially out in Wounded Knee, out in Pine Ridge and Wambly, and my friend Kim, when she used to go Sundances out there. But these people are living in devastating poverty. I mean, the smallest minority in this country, all these different people that migrate to the United States, the Native American has the most highest population of minorities, has the most highest population of alcoholism and suicide. So a lot of Native people join the military. I'm a veteran. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I've spent time in Panama, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam. I did 6 years in Marine Corps and 21 in the Army. So, but a lot of people, Native people, escape the hardships of the reservations and hard life by joining the military, and they do quite well. A lot of them did quite well there. Because living back on a reservation, there's nothing else. There was nothing for them to look forward to. And actually, in Malwa, our own Ramapough people, the prejudice was so rampant that me and the chief had to go down to one of the schools because some of the people on the Board of Education were telling Ramapough kids that, as soon as you get 16, you might as well quit school because of who you are. You're not going to be anything. You're not going to ever be anything proficient in your life. You might as well quit school, get a job working on the road, working for the town. They were trying to encourage the Ramapough kids to quit school. Right. We had to go down there and raise heck with it. So yeah, so I mean, it's just people. They're just some nasty people down there. They just hated us down there. And like I said, I grew up in Chester. I didn't experience it. So we did. I was going down on my own property. I have to worry about somebody shooting at you or throwing stones at you or calling you names and stuff. You know, it got to the point where it just got crazy. It just got really bad.
Another question.
I have actually two questions that go together. One is, how many acres does the tribe currently have control and possession of?
Okay, yes, on paper, we have in Stony Point there's probably about 3 or 4 acres. With two structures, we have a building, we have a church there. was, and we're also trying to get, we have like I said, Split Rock, that's going to be signed over by New York State as under the trust of the tribe. And I said, and the one on the movie you saw, that's 13.9 acres of land on across from Ramapough College. That's basically what we have on paper right now.
Like
that we
50
own.
acres. Roughly 50 acres.
Hmm?
Roughly 50 acres, something like that.
Yeah, 13.9, so almost 14.
13. Okay.
And that's all like land. There's no buildings on it. It's all,
Right.
like I said, all we have is the stones and the carved faces.
So that leads me to my second question, thought, idea, and that is, given the amount of land trusts that this area is passionate about, what would it look like? Is it possible for us as people of faith to lobby for all of the land trusts to be put under native control?
That's possible. Because we've done that in New York. We've done that. Similar things like with Stony Point. And people have, come up and say, oh yeah, you guys want this? We'll put this under your name, under your tribe's name.
Right.
If you legally own it and sign legal papers saying that we control it or the tribe will control it.
Yeah, I'm thinking like actual legislation.
Yeah.
If it is a land trust, it goes under
Yeah,
native
politics
control.
involved.
Done.
If you speak to the right politicians, if they're either for or against us, it could happen or it couldn't happen. That's what's been happening with us because we got denied federal recognition twice. We got and we met the 5 criteria. We missed it by 2 in 1990 something. One of the criteria was they wanted. There was a meeting between some chiefs that signed some patents. I don't know if it was the Way-Me-On patent or the Chief Scope or one of those big land patents where they did get a native person to put his mark on it, and they'd get a witness to say that's what it was. And they would, supposedly they would pick a spot and walk in a certain distance, so many miles, and how long it took that person to walk from point A to point B, and then they would take another direction and walk from point A to point. Well, how they got away with all this land was they said, okay, well, I'm not walking from point A to point B. I'll jump on my horse and keep riding and riding and riding and riding and riding my horse until my horse got tired. Stretch it out and go ride my horse. So that's how they ended up getting, a big chunk of Pennsylvania and New Jersey all at one time because the guy was supposed to walk from point A to point B, but instead he rode his horse. So that's any other questions about that? Because it's all up to the politicians. Like I said, we got denied federal recognition because at one point, because we didn't have documentation of a meeting that was held between 2 chiefs that supposedly sold all this land. We couldn't produce records of it. Hey, we didn't keep written records.
Right.
So they knocked us down. And then Donald Trump, at that time, Donald Trump was big. His big thing was Atlantic City. It was going really good. And he heard the rumor. It was nothing but a rumor. That the reason we wanted federal recognition was to open up a gambling casino. I mean, where would you put a gambling casino around Paramus, New Jersey? Already built up. What are you going to do? Put it in the air somewhere? There's nowhere. But we didn't want that, so that was the word that got out to Donald Trump, and he said, oh no, we can't have these people getting gambling casinos right here on the border of New York and New Jersey, 30 minutes from New York City. Everybody will be going to them instead of coming down to Atlantic City. So he got on a radio station and was talking about, no, these people don't need to get federal recognition. They're not really native. He said, this is what he said. I quote, I look more native than they do. Then don't give them nothing. So he actually, we know that he did it. We could prove it, but he did sign some money. Gave it to her name was Marge Roken. At the time, she was assemblywoman from New Jersey. Paid her off. Come time for the judge to let us know if we got federal recognition. It was put in. We were supposed to. The tribe and the council was supposed to know if we got the federal recognition. Before the tribe and council found it was already put in the newspaper that we got denied federal recognition. I think it was 1997. Yeah, so they violated the law. They were supposed to tell us first if we got it or not. So we wanted the federal recognition just for for additional aid, like all the some other tribes, like the Iroquois and other tribes out. You get grants, you get benefits. But we get things from New Jersey because the state recognizes as Native. We recognize ourselves, of course, but all this political stuff, that's what it is. It's all I mean, they didn't want to fairly recognize us at that time because it would mess with, and Donald Trump had a big influence over the politicians at that time. So.
Do you think there's any surplus people left in the area? Because this is like the surplus region. And there were natives in New Paltz. I mean,
Well, I know we do a lot of stuff up by Big Indian and Pine Hill, the little town by Big Indian. And there are a couple of people that they claim, I don't know, I mean, they like I said, it's like the movie says, self-identification. If you say you're Native, no one else, just because you don't look like the Indian on a nickel, it doesn't, necessarily, you say, oh, they're not Native, just because he says he is, but no. There might be a few remnants of it, but as far as I remember, most of them did migrate upstate with some Iroquois, and they went to Canada. So.
One more question, and then we're going to let everybody go, because it's getting cold in here, among other things.
Jane had a question.
Oh, no,
right here, Sharon.
Who had a question?
Sharon.
I have a question. So when I was 8, about 100 years ago, we went to Monroe Indian Village, and I remember getting a little Hopi doll.
Was it Museum Village?
Yes.
Oh,
Is that
Museum
still
Village,
in
yeah.
existence?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, it's not far from where I grew up at, Great Court.
Just, when,
Great Court, where I grew up, the history of Great Court, where my sister grew up at, it was an Indian, Native American slave camp.
Oh.
Where they would catch natives, like I said, for slaves in this country wasn't just African Americans, it was Native Americans. Native Americans, being caught by other Native Americans. And it's a sad story what the Cherokees did to my ancestors, catching them, putting them into slavery. Because what happened after that when Mr. Andrew Jackson did the Cherokees, right? He made them walk all the way to Oklahoma. Right. 1/3 of the tribe died on the way, so that's kind of what they get for messing with my ancestors. So, it's a sad story. It's a sad story, but we're still here. We're still walking. We're still talking, and we're trying to keep our culture alive best we can. It's hard. It's hard because the young kids, they want to be on the computer. It's hard. Some of the young kids, they do dance. They put the regalia on. At least once or twice a year, you'll see them come to a gathering or a powwow. It's good to see the young kids. But we try to encourage the young kids. Maybe can't force them, but a lot of our young kids, they're just like everybody else is young kid here. They're all off in their own little computer world, and that's. I'm just an old dinosaur trying to keep it going. I'm just one of the people, trying to keep it going. Through the song, my drum group, Spirit Mountain Singers, we do powwows, functions, we do things like that. We keep the culture going. We teach the kids the songs, and I do a lot of Iroquois songs, social dances and songs, and I learned a lot of. I grew up like that. I grew up when I was young, learning Native culture. But a lot of these kids today, they don't. They don't.
well, on that cheerful note, thank you all.
Thank you.
We're delighted to have a connection with you.
So we say the pitch for now, and then I'll say see you later.
Thanks so much. They're sitting next to you. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Still on.
Thanks for coming.
My aunt told me when they were young, in the early mountains, you
guys do.
like called people now. And then we're all Native American my aunt used to go to Sunday school.
SSIC. You're staying in place.
Well, I've made a few trips to the west.
Thanks a lot.
See how they live on the reservation.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have to meet down there on Sunday morning. They cleaned it up a lot now.
Yeah, I remember it.
I did not realize.
Native American slave community.
Yeah, it was then Camp LaGuardia at one time was a woman's prison.
Yeah, I remember that. I have a good friend that my sister, Leslie Davis. Now, yeah, she's a really good friend, so I go to Chester all the time.
Yeah, that Camp LaGuardia place, even before it was a woman's prison back during the Civil War.
Well, I actually
Civil War? We used to send prisoners of war to Camp LaGuardia before we killed. They had a guard shack. I don't know if you know Camp LaGuardia. Remember Camp LaGuardia? They had a guard shack there. Back in 1990 something, before they closed the place down, the guard shack before you get to the entrance to go in there. 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the guys in the guard shack, they got his log book, you can see it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. He looks up on his guard shack. He's standing in front of his guard shack with some guy in a Civil War uniform. It was logged in his log book that he saw it. He wouldn't look at it, and it was gone, disappeared. Thank you. Thank you.
Unwieldy. We're just done showing you. Thank you so much. And there's no reason to believe.
I just was wondering if you knew of anyone who's written about the New Paltz Esopus mystery from a Native American perspective, because everything I read is a European.
What do you have to do?
Nick
How
Miles,
do you get to that?
where is he located?
Just the tribe, oh, this is something the tribe does itself.
Yeah, but like this is he wants someone who puts his eyes on the tribe.
Yeah, I don't have one.
So that's not done by the government, it's done by the tribe.
Yeah, well, and the number, the trouble is, the tribal number, and registered on all Native American states, or federal, federal state number is registered. So when you apply for benefits or I have all that.
So where can I find Nick Miles? Where is he affiliated?
So I wish, and I think that
I am.
Wilmington?
It's right off of James. What is that town that we take 9W? Yeah, it's called Bloomington.
Bloomington's on 32.
Yeah, 32. Right on 32.
Yeah, right.
6 miles.
It's just past Rosendale.
Bloomington.
So,
It's right outside of New Paltz on 32. Big miles. Oh, yeah, but yes, I could ask Eric.
Past Rosendale.
Oh, yeah.
Bloomington's past Rosendale.
would otherwise be running, have spent years
Nick
cultivating
Miles is a retired
their
pastor.
days.
From the foreign church then, because we used to go do drumming in
So,
the church.
It
And
becomes a level
also,
playing field.
Eric Dixon, he was a professor at the college, he's a friend of ours, he lives in the village of New Paltz. If you give me your name
Okay.
and number, I could contact you.
What is Gary Dixon?
No, A-I-R-Y.
Oh,
The Beaver War or something.
yeah, we're trying to we've been, talking to historians in the area, just trying to kind of get a fuller picture of where the particular.
Have you talked to Carol Johnson at the library, at Elton Library?
Yes, I've been in touch, but I've been looking also at the question of definitely.
It's like.
Yeah,
things
information, and this is like the missing piece. Our thing,
I'm not sure what the new number would be, that's not.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Can you read that?
Yeah, I know, the virus, we had a lot of things going on with the virus. The other thing, the one thing I did this year was a powwow, we did a veterans powwow in Middletown, New York, for the American Legion. That's one thing I did this year, it was really nice in September, but check our website out, because we do have things.
I live on Enterprise Road.
Things going on, check our welcome, check it out, we don't work all the way.
What's that?
I said, I don't know if it's power from local corrections.
Oh, yeah.
And it's 20 years that I've been, and it's 15 years.
We did a line ceremony with some Mohawks, we have.
As a what?
We're also doing a Mohawk reservation,
Yeah,
and,
African American.
we do things with them too, for the year.
There's a middle winters that I do.
Doing the midwinter ceremony.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna go.
Yeah, I worked all 40 years in New York City. Teaching
6 months ago.
sort of struggling in school to make documentaries about social and community issues.
I had a detached retina and a perforated retina, they fixed
They
that.
actually did.
This is glaucoma, it's not a road nerve, so. I'm not driving more.
Understand, like, kind of critiquing stereotypes of Native Americans and
This is always fun.
We're surprised how many students in New York City schools are Native American.
Reenactment, Mary Joseph showing up at various places in Oregon. One of the places that we're showing up is on the Trail of Tears.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
So we want, you know,
20
years.
years. It's flush. I let it flush. Yeah, that's my neighbor.
Well, right, so, right, and these are,
I'll
right,
give
these
you
are like 2-minute clips,
emails,
so
you know, to remind you of who I am.
they're not detailed in their storytelling, it's pointing to the idea that those who are being displaced are the center of the story. Right, so, yes, I know that we're not doing justice in our 2 minutes to the whole of the story, but one of the things that we're concerned about is,
I'll just try to get people to get in touch with you.
is being authentic and appropriate and not engaging in horrifying acts of cultural
This is so
appropriation
important.
as we try to at
We
least
just don't have this history.
point
and it's
to
really important.
the justice issue.
Yeah.
The Huguenots just sort of came here.
Yeah, my great grandfather's name was Henri
They
Pierre.
went to
He was
Supreme Court.
France and my little cousin was a genealogy and we had this World War I, he was a French citizen. World War I draft card with my great
So they went to
grandmother.
Congress passed a
And he
law
got killed.
and agreed that the Cherokee could stay in their area.
Interesting.
Passed by Congress. Okay, the other tribes gotta go, but you Cherokee can stay.
Let's say much.
Andrew Jackson signed the executive order, said no. Certain time, certain day, if they're not out of there, they sent the Marines and the Army in, took the doors down, and said, you pass the date, you gotta go home. Because the Cherokees are the slaves, let's say me and you were brothers and sisters. Because I look more black than native, you had to stay, you're a slave. If I look more native, you had to go home. You had to have families like that. The Cherokees can marry with some of their slaves. Cherokees are all slaves. Now they have to get off with them. Some of the Cherokees now are home because a lot of people with the black ancestry, the Cherokees, some of the Cherokees council want to kick them off the tribe and say, oh, you're not Cherokees either. But then you get some that they speak fluent, some of these dark-skinned Cherokees speak fluent Cherokee. We get some of the people down there, that's their own problem. Yeah, they want to kick some of them out, they call it freemen, they want to kick the freemen off of this tribe. But they say, oh, no, we just took these with us because, we just took these with us over home because we remember our slaves.
Oh, all right, so here's me.
No, we actually get to marry with them, blood. Blacks are mixed with the Cherokees.
What about the Seminoles? That's they could never defeat them.
Helping them.
Yeah, the first chief was a black escaped slave named Osceola.
I know how to write.
The black slave, escaped slave, he became the primary chief
So
of
that's me.
the Seminole, because actually it was the Creek.
I'd
The
love
Creek
to
was the main
get
tribe.
together
The
some-
Seminoles were called renegades.
Like,
They were a section of the Creeks that went to the Okefenokee swamp in Florida, right down there in the swamp, right? No, because they sent the Marines and Army guys in, and the Marines and Army were dying from cholera and the other disease you get from mosquitoes, malaria. And technically, they're still legally at war with them because the war, they just couldn't get them out of there.
Really glad Sally told me about this.
They have like a jacket.
And we didn't publicize it when we were that. I mean, three churches are starting to work together.
I'm Brenda. I'm Brenda. So my friend said that her and my cake and when I first came, she was one of the first people that was around these steps.
All right.
But it's nice to meet you.
Okay.
And I'm just sitting in the floor and all
Flash.
that.
Yes.
And I go in the used to be drum and singing.
Would you like to go home tonight or tomorrow?
Okay.
I'm just letting this roll.
Okay.
Kappa's still watching. Hi, Kappa.
Is Kappa still watching or did she?
That's her.
Yeah, I know, but
Well, I don't know if she's
yeah.
And I'm very close to one, not what I call anything, not very cool.
actively watching. If you are Kappa, hello. It's lovely to see you.
It's really, I mean, the DNA, everything that my father told us, you know, that's.
Turned out true.
Yeah.
Right.
Good to know. So people say, well, you want to make all recognition, so you get money, I'm like, no, we'd like to be recognized. We don't have to call.
Over and over and over again, so we call ourselves, but the white people say.
Yeah.
Or but the
Because some of the people in our tribes have afros,
No, I have this.
dark skin, some people are white, blue eyes, and then there's like Leah Floyd. Some people like that work in the business, so I kept saying I was Dominican. Or I'm with a group of Puerto Ricans, I'm Puerto Rican, and I'm with black, it's always gonna be something, you know. So how can you prove it? I said, how can you prove you're Italian Jewish? Right. Where's your card? We need where's your card? I said, well, we have to carry cards.
I have a colleague in the church who brought to my attention the strangeness of this, and that he's, you know, he's 3/4 Native American,
Yeah.
and he looks whiter than me.
Oh,
He
yeah,
doesn't seem like it should be possible. And he said that, you know, the discrimination that he's faced over the years.
Come to our powwows and you'll see.
And
People
he's like, no one ever, you know, he's like, he's, part of what his life has been about is raising awareness and recognizing that we have to stand out there in terms of understanding race and racial distinction. Because no one who sees him, when he says he's Native American, people just have ridicule him. Even though DNA, everything in his heritage is very traditional.
Like that place that we grew up in Chester during our 50s and 60s. It was a small town and we didn't go through prejudice. I didn't know why people didn't like white people, you know, because all my friends were white and relatives were white. Then I moved to Newburgh when I went to work for IBM. I was like, oh, now I can pick something. Because I'm in the grocery store, the lady says, separate your groceries. I'm like, oh, she wants to make sure the meat was meat, you know, so we organized. She said, well, don't you have stamps? I said, stamps for what? She said, your food stamps. I said, what the? I didn't know you can't, when you have welfare, you can't have paper products. I said, what makes you think I'm on welfare? I work for IBM. Oh, nice, now I'm getting heated.
Yeah.
I had to go to the prayer closet because I was getting ready something that they shouldn't say. But, you know, now I'm more aware when I was going to stores and they were like, can I help? I said, well, I just came in. Right. I said, okay, I get it now. Depends on where you are. And people in Chester knew us. My father, everybody loved my
Yeah, we
dad.
grew up in Chester with the black, they grew letters to the Italians, the
Black
Sicilians.
Sicilians.
They were saying color I was.
Yeah, or darker. They said that. I'm like, no. So we all got along.
Big
It was a good child, thank God we had that childhood, you know, where you accept all kinds of people, you know? Neighbors were Italian, Sicilian, Polish, and you just never went through this crap.
Yeah, Mall, they just got crazy. They, you know, people lived on the mountain, the local people started manipulating the zoning laws and taxes, raising taxes, forcing people out, so they could, like I said, originally they didn't care where we were up in the mountains, all up in the mountain. But then they realized we had artesian wells up in the mountain. Oh, yeah, we can get this, we can get this, we can get this. You know, that's how they do it. It's, we call it new Jim Crow laws.
Yeah.
That's all. And it doesn't affect all of us, it doesn't affect the native people, everybody can be affected by the new Jim Crow laws. They can pay taxes, maybe this, maybe do that, you know? Stroke of the pen, next thing you know, you're, my different tax bracket. Why are they different tax bracket? Oh, because you live over here instead of over there.
The
Yeah, a friend of ours, they came to our powwow, and so this one lady said, I just, love it, man. No, she said, I love those Jackson Lake people. And I said, she's a Jackson Lake. I said, that's like saying N-word or a stick word.
They don't know.
They don't know. They think it's something.
They think they write the book.
But it's all about educating. If you don't know, you don't know.
1960 something, a school book. That was, your regular history book in school for curriculum, they were ordered for the classes. And I'm looking at it one day, they had a map of Native Americans in 19, like I said, and they had it on the book, they said right in there, it said Jackson Lake. They had this as a Jackson Lake, but at least they recognized it as something. But they don't know that ignorance. They didn't know that it was offended to us, so they couldn't.
No, you're right.
I didn't wear my other one. I wore my winters. I used to wear my one that's open. I always had a little on the side of my other one. I have a shamrock.
We'd love like that.
My great grandmother from Ireland, my family, Hicks and McGinnis, my family. I always carry my little green shamrock cross on my fellowship. That's the bottom line. You're absolutely right. Doesn't matter what race, color, creed. It's either good, you're doing good, or you're doing bad. You're doing God, or you're doing evil. So there's no in between. Me and Kim will go back to kindergarten now. We're about to get out of kindergarten. Bringing out a Rosie, right?
Yeah, they're playing around Rosie.
And then it's a compliment. It's like, oh, wow. I didn't mean that as a compliment. You don't even have a composer. Wow.
Thank you, Charles, for,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Pleasure.
I'm gonna go home and watch it again, because I went to the language class like 6 times already.
Nice Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, thank
The
you.
words are like that. All I know is a whole, like, I know the songs, but that language is really tough. My brother's good at unfortunately, language.
She got her name was blessed.
I'm with you.
I
I made meat and then put that up.
That's
Put it on spot.
Yep.
You can bet
Thank you,
Yeah.
4 buttons.
Very impressed by the technology things. Do you do this every Sunday, or was this just today?
Pretty much.
He does this every
You
day.
do this every Sunday?
Yeah, we're trying to get somebody to help.
Your little fades in and out and switches around and
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm getting better
So
at
is
it.
that an ATEM Mini Pro?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're getting ready to set up at Redeemer.
yeah.
Oh, look at that. That's way too much me, thank you.
That's awesome.
I feel like we've met before. I'm Tobias.
Tobias. Charles Frommer.
Nice to meet you.
Tobias.
Nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you.
He's
yes.
the husband of the music director. I mean, he's
Okay.
Charles in his own right, but
Yeah, great.
and also a musician, sax player.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, it's very nice to meet you.
Me too.
All right.
Good luck with the ATEM Mini.
I'm going to end this meeting, even if Kappa's not there.